Hey, it's Robert Clickybeard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. This podcast is sponsored by Bum Data, helping commercial landscapers turn labor data into smarter decisions with intuitive, actionable analytics. Check them out if you're ready to control your labor costs and boost your margins. When you mention Wilson T60, you'll get 1 month free subscription to check out this amazing software. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Adam Linnemann. Adam, good to see you in the show today.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
So, Adam, for our audience, do you want to just tell everybody about your background in the industry and some of the things you do to keep busy these days?
Industry background is actually, this is our 31st year running Linnemann Lawn Care Landscaping. We are in the St. Louis, Missouri market area, 11 miles south over in southern Illinois. So we have the landscaping business, and then we also do a little bit of industry coaching where we help others with cash flow management, particularly profit first. And then we are also LMN software certified consultants. So that's where we also work at as well on the consulting side.
Tell me a little bit more about, I suppose, the lawn care business first, in terms of either size or employees, or what specifically do you focus on?
My business, like I said, started back in 1994. Built the business starting off with a lot of residential maintenance, which I'm sure a lot of contractors have done. Grew the business up to 25 team members running a seven-figure landscaping business. And then actually maybe about 12 or so years ago, maybe a little bit longer, we started implementing LMN software and honestly started realizing, Robert, that we were not making money cutting grass. Over those years, we kind of transitioned to understanding our financials much more, then deciding to ultimately get out of residential mowing maintenance in 2022, so not that long ago, and focusing on landscaping design build projects, landscape lighting, and residential design build.
Now, it takes a lot of mental awareness and it's, maybe sometimes even a hit to the ego if you want to try and almost like redesign your business. If you go down one path and you realize it's not making any money, then you switch to another path. It's quite a big transition. What were some of, I suppose, the struggles that you saw making that move? Because that's quite a big shift and it scares a lot of people to do that.
I would say mindset shift is huge when it comes to making a decision like that. It was a very scary decision to get out of the maintenance because we had built it up to running 4 full-time mowing crews just on the residential maintenance section of our business. When we started understanding our numbers better, knowing our cost, break even, selling price, it really broke down to probably about half of those customers we weren't making money on. Or if we were, I started realizing that we were literally making these stops, at $60, $70, $80 stops for residential lawns and making $5 or $10 profit each time. And to me, when you realize that, you just broke a window at a house, now you're mowing these lawns for the next 2 years in order to break even.
Right.
So that's just really simply it. Realizing that we're making much more profit on lighting projects, on landscaping projects. We're in and out, in several days to several weeks, depending on the project size. And the mowing was just too much of a hustle and a grind for us and for where I wanted the business to transition to long term.
And obviously making that transition now, it sounds like, and I'm sure you'll get into it, that the fact you're able to do some consulting, do some stuff with LMN, shows me that, you've obviously got your business somewhat on autopilot where it's somewhat running itself, and then you're able to sort of spend some time on, other passion projects and doing some important consulting stuff for other people. Is that fair comment?
It is. Yeah. And that's, to me, I think really be able to understand where you want your business to go is so incredibly important, because what they teach inside Profit First is that chasing the top line sales can oftentimes be a mindset trap. And I think it's very much important to understand where you're really making your money, where you're really making your profit from, and focusing on that and ignoring, like I said, trying to be that $3 million, $5 million business, especially if you're not making money. I oftentimes talk about, Robert, honestly, that some of the national trade magazines, they post the top 100 companies in volume and size. And I wish they would really post the top 100 profitable companies. To me, that's what I would like to see and understand and learn from, because I know for a fact some of those companies probably aren't making money or maybe even going bankrupt. Some of those that are in the, hundreds of millions of dollars of size. And I like to focus on and learn from the ones that are really making profitable money.
No, actually, I love that idea. At Wilson 360, we do annual benchmarking. We probably have somewhere between 60 and 80 companies that do that. We do measure the profit piece, but I don't think we've ever really done any type of awards or something. So that's actually might be something to think about, is coming up with some type of award based on, the highest percentage of net profit.
And that's one of the things that when we teach and help implement Profit First, is one of the big wins that we are able to help contractors is first and foremost is paying themselves a fair and healthy salary, and on top of that, earning a profit. Because I think a lot of contractors think that profit is owner's pay, and it's not. The owner needs to be paid fairly, just like he or she might to go work for any other landscaping company, right? Maybe they expect to be paid $60, $80, $100,000 a year or more. They should be paying themselves that in their own business. And so that's when you're able to kind of separate where your money's going. With the Profit First methodology, you will start understanding where your money is going and how to allocate accordingly to your expenses.
Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine, and I think I've had him on the show a couple of times, Greg Crabtree, Simple Numbers, and he talks about, profit first and build your budget from bottom up. And he also talks about, just paying yourself a fair wage. People come to him and they come up with all these different creative ways of paying themselves, and he just take the hit, pay the taxes, and then you can get creative on how to improve your profits. So
Sure.
I 100% believe in that.
Robert, real quick, how I started that process was honestly just paying myself minimum wage back years ago, and then just started getting that feeling of, okay, how does it feel to pay $12, $14 an hour, 40 hours a week? And then once you start getting comfortable with that for several months, then you can start bumping that salary up until you're paid a fair salary. Now, business owners also need to understand that they probably get some add backs. Add backs are going to be some benefits or perks of being an owner. We factor that into owner's pay as well when we look at Profit First, but they need to be paid fair and healthy, right? And that also makes their business more valuable in the long run as well.
And you made a good point earlier that a lot of the time it's mindset. If people, we all know how hard a lot of people work in the landscape industry. They're out all day, they come home, they're exhausted. They don't necessarily have a great deal of time to either look at either the books or maybe the ERP system they have. They're just hoping a lot of money, more money's coming in and going out. But, to get them to change that mindset and really diving deep into the numbers and understanding them, because a lot of people come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm interested in selling my business. I think it's worth this. And then I give them, unfortunately, the bad news. It's worth a lot less than that.
Mm-hmm.
If they'd done some of that, work that you're talking about, understanding the numbers earlier, perhaps they could have made some simple changes for the past 2 years.
Right.
What do you see out there when people come to you with just trying to maybe adopt or trying to get their profitability higher?
What do I see with those companies as far as?
Yeah, just in some of the challenges you see or the reasons why, or what were some of the things you quickly uncover?
I think a lot of it is improper pricing of knowing what to charge in order to recover their expenses. So that's number one. And that's where I feel like a good software can help them. There's multiple brands out there, but a good software that has a budgeting tool can help them understand that. So that's the first thing. And then also, I think also a lot of contractors, they like shiny new equipment. They do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I always say to ask yourself 3 questions before you as the business owner goes out and makes any purchase in the business. And those 3 questions are these. First of all, is the purchase what I'm about to make good for my company? The second question is the purchase what I'm about to make good for my client? And then the third question is, can the purchase wait? And so that's kind of like the sniff test you should be asking yourself before you go out and make any purchase, and start building better habits whenever you are, building your business and growing. We can't always afford that $100,000 or more dump truck, and a lot of contractors will go out and pull that trigger when they really can't afford it or have the work to keep it working. If that piece of equipment's sitting inside their shop or their office for 3 days a week and it's not being worked, it probably wasn't a good purchase. So you have to ask yourself those questions, and it's kind of like the sniff test. And that's where I try to tell my friends and or contractors that come to me, hey, let's make some better decisions. I'm not saying you can't have coffee in the morning, right? As far as whenever, if you like to buy Starbucks,
Right.
you can still have coffee, but maybe you buy the Keurig for the office and you skip the Starbucks.
Right. Yeah, I like that, especially these days. It's getting
Yeah.
more expensive. So, you might get a few companies that come along to you and they've maybe over the last 50 years either broken even. By the time you sort of get some clarity around the numbers, they've either broken even or somewhere sat in that 2 to 5% net profit. What's a good target for you to start them with? I mean, are you jumping them up straight to try and get that minimum 10? Because I remember Crabtree was saying, 10% should be almost like that minimum standard.
Mhm.
But, obviously that's quite a big jump from going from either negative or maybe breaking even. Where do you usually sort of start that whole process?
When we work with clients, what we do is we do something called a profit assessment, and we kind of see where the current allocation percentages are of the business. And so we break those down into profit percentages, any taxes that they're maybe putting money aside from, owner's pay percentage, and a operating expense percentage. And so we look at their financials and we do an assessment based off of the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet. So we look at the cash going in and out. We run their financials on a cash basis, not a accrual basis. Oftentimes they are honestly 5% or less, or even sometimes in the negative. And I think it's important to note that you need to start somewhere. You need to start small. So if a company is in the negative, -2, -3, -5%. We've seen that before. Starting even at 1 is a 6% jump. So where do we start cutting? And so that's when we go through, take a P&L and run it in a cash basis, like what I said, and then start categorizing our expenses into these different categories and start seeing, where's our money going, and then where can we immediately start cutting. Now, I can tell you that, a lot of contractors understand this and know this, but they forget that their number one most expensive expense typically is labor. And so I think a lot of it is inefficiencies out in the field. It's not running lean businesses. So we kind of start looking there. Also, sometimes too, they might have too much overhead. And I think that's important to take a look at as well. So the more you can have a billable time and billable work out inside the field, the better off the business is actually going to be. I think there was a statistic that I saw the other day is that all reality, a lot of landscaping businesses, they are only operating like at 60, maybe 70% of their time is actually billable time. The remainder is unbillable. So what can we do to get that number, that 30% down more and the 70% up higher, right? It's all about the inefficiencies. It's about, helping them understand that if they go pick up that pallet of sod versus paying the $100 delivery fee, they're probably losing a lot of opportunity time that they could actually be billing out for work. So those are the types of things that we see. And yeah, we do try to help them transition to that 10, 15, 20% mark in profitability when we go through the system of profit first. But it's all about really understanding where the finances are going first.
Yeah, cool. I like it. Again, we might have some, in fact, even some established business owners. I've had a few calls in the last few weeks, and as soon as I start to talk to them about cash versus accrual, their eyes glaze over. So just for some of those people that are maybe start getting into the business, why would you look at maybe cash first versus accrual?
So cash first, or running on a cash basis is really going to truly be your money going in and out of your P&L and seeing where the money is traditionally going, whereas accrual can be skewed some. So for an example might be if you accept a lot of prepays at the beginning of the year for maintenance services, your P&L is going to look a lot better than what it will at the end of the year because you have a lot of invoices that have already went out in the beginning of the year. And maybe the customer's paid or maybe they haven't paid yet, but it's definitely going to be skewed versus the money that you actually have in hand at the time. So that's why it's important to look at the cash versus accrual basis and understand really where it's going and where it's going in and out at.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Archer is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Archer makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Archer isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Archer, mention Wilson 360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you. Getting rid of the noise can also be a big issue. And what I mean by that is, one of the things we do with the benchmarking piece is that we try and remove all the fluff, all the noise, so that we're able to compare like for like in terms of the way they lay out their profit and loss. I mean, you probably see that as well, where just they're misallocating things, putting them in the cost of goods and they should be in the expenses. Is that something you do at a pretty early stage just to make sure that they're categorized so you could truly give them some benchmark numbers so they're able to maybe compare with some of their other colleagues in the industry?
Yeah, it definitely is. I know every coach and or even bookkeeper and accountant might like to see financials done a little bit differently on their own way. I know how we do it at Linnemann Lawn and Landscaping, and what we like to suggest is to have, for instance, our direct labor in our cost of goods sold, but our overhead labor not in our cost of goods sold is how we like to break it down. Some other things to take into consideration too, at least in profit first terms, is a business's real revenue is actually this total sales of the business by minus the materials and subcontractors only. So sometimes that could be a little bit misleading as far as when people ask about cost of goods sold, but in profit first terms, it's sales minus materials and subs only, and that equals the real revenue of a business. And so since we're talking profit first, the example that I would have for you is let's say that you are a $10 million home builder and you have $9 million of materials and subs. Profit first looks at your business as a $1 million business, not a $10 million business, because it's so much of a pass through. The breaking point is usually around 25%. So if it's under 25% of materials and subs, it's the total sales is what the real revenue is. If it's over 25%, then we like to pull that out, and then that helps determine what the real revenue is of the business.
What other challenges do you see are there when, in fact, my question is around time of year. Where should people start thinking about budgets? Talk through the process of what should be done first, and where they're doing budgets first, and then they're starting to look at their individual pricing for specific tasks within the company. What does that look like, and talk through the timing of it in terms of time of year?
Great question. I believe a budget is somewhat fluid, so I would not hesitate to update your budget 2, maybe 3 times a year. A lot of that can be updated very quickly and easily, and it allows you to change your pricing immediately. Once again, if you're using certain softwares and things like that, you can plug that in. Your budget is pretty quickly updated, and now you have good pricing. The other thing I want to mention is, especially over the last 10 years or so, pricing on materials changed almost month to month. COVID had a big change with materials. Tariffs these days may have a big change with materials. I know I'm waiting for price increases coming out from a lot of our landscape lighting products and things like that, but it is crucial to estimate with updated price lists from your vendors. Contractors, they get busy. They don't think about that. You need to be calling your plant suppliers, your Site One landscape supply yards, all those, and getting updated price lists so you are using good numbers to estimate off of. Do that a couple of times a year. I see a lot of money lost, a lot of profit lost because of they're not updating price lists, budgets. All that really needs to be touched on at least a couple of times a year and make sure that everything is in line.
Yeah, and not just even the materials, but even labor. I mean, it used to really surprise me going in and trying to help companies, and I'd ask them what the average hourly rate was per division. Just get that, deer in the headlights look. So just knowing that constant change, but you're 100% spot on that. The whole COVID time, changed it from maybe once a year twice at the most, but it can easily go monthly, as you say. So that's where your communication with your suppliers
Mhm.
and also just giving your clients a heads up that things are changing. I think sometimes
Right.
we forget that little missing piece as well.
Leverage your vendors. Profit First teaches us that is leverage your vendors. And it's not to make it be a bad thing that you are price shopping your vendors, but you really need to have a vendor that's going to support you as a contractor, that's going to get the product to you in a timely manner. It's going to give you good value and good pricing. I take advantage of early order programs every September for our fertilizers, for our herbicides, for our pesticides, for the next following upcoming season. Leverage your vendors by taking advantage of those EOPs or early order programs. And then, like I said, price around. I am a big advocate buying local, buying from the mom and pop if you can. Sometimes it's tough, I admit sometimes that we'll buy some things off of Amazon because of products that we use are just a lot cheaper than what they are locally. One example might be drainage supplies. A lot of those pop-up emitters that we put at the end of downspouts for homes, they're half the cost online from Amazon than they are from our local supplier. We get 30, 40, 50 of those shipped to us once a month, it seems like. So shop your vendors, know where you can get the best value and product and have it in inventory. And ultimately, you're going to end up making better margins.
And we would actually sometimes partner up with other landscape companies within our region. So now we had, potentially doubled the buying power, which has helped. You're 100% spot on regarding negotiating with your vendors. You're right. I think during COVID, prices were going up. I felt like weekly.
Mhm.
We're 3-5%, but we never went back and revisited that. So now it's the time to sort of revisit that, whether it be suppliers, whether it be subscription models or other internet type scenarios. I think it's just good to revisit all of that on a regular basis. Any other sort of missing pieces in terms of, maybe there's some contractors on listening to this and, maybe they came in at 3-4% last year. What would you think would be a good first steps for them just to say going into the season, a good way to take that up a notch or two?
One thing I was going to say before that real quick was back to profit and loss statements and balance sheets. Oftentimes your profit and loss doesn't match the cash in the bank account because of items that live on your balance sheet. What are those items on a balance sheet? Particularly a lot of liabilities of maybe your new dump truck, your skid steer, things like that. If you have loans on those are assets and they're also liabilities and they're on your balance sheet, right? And so if your P&L is showing a profit and of let's just say 10% in your $1 million business. So that should be $100,000, but you don't have that cash in the bank. It's more than likely because of things on your balance sheet and you're making payments. So that is one thing to be on the lookout for, is that just because your P&L says you're profitable doesn't mean that you actually have money, right? So,
Sure.
keep that in mind. Back to your question though, any other tidbits, information? Gosh, there's so much. I would just say that the biggest tidbit and takeaway would be to work with somebody. If you can't do it yourself or or you're struggling with it, work with somebody that can help you with understanding your financials, your numbers. That's the biggest takeaway, I would say. I myself struggle with that much more a long time ago than what I do now. But now I understand our sales volume is growing slowly, but much more profitably than what we ever were before. Our revenue per hour on jobs are up because we're doing high revenue per hour jobs such as lighting and things like that. It's not uncommon for us to be billing out $300, $400 an hour when we do lighting projects. So focus on that and just get down a good system in place and work with someone like yourself and help have someone help you grow your business and be a good mentor. Accountability is huge.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's so many great resources. There's us, yourself. I think you made a key point there. Just regarding the financial piece, that accountability. But I think part of that is having a good ERP system to feed that right data in, and then be able to analyze that data, look at the numbers, and then make some key decisions on that and how you're going to improve. So all that sort of meshes together with the people, the accountability, the data that's being provided, making sure it's accurate data. And then constantly look at that. Almost, yourself better than most, is that it's all very well to look at a set of financials, middle of the month past when you operated, but how nice is it to get to a position where you're actually beginning to look ahead and start to influencing how those numbers look. So
And then understand the trends, the cash flow trends.
100%. Adam, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, just learn a little bit more about you and about your coaching side of the business?
Sure. They can visit profitfirstpros.com or thegreenexecutive.com. Happy to chat with them and see if we'd be a good fit.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy guy, but thank you for your being on the show and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Ironman mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.